Hi, I'm Bill and welcome to my channel. Tonight's video is about the process I went through to determine if deep sky object imaging was the right type of learning opportunity for me to get involved with. I was looking for something new to do. I wanted it to be in the area of photography, and so I started exploring and researching astrophotography and in particular deep sky object imaging. But before I get into the video, just want to give the normal qualification. I'm just a guy on the internet. I've decided to learn something about astrophotography, in particular deep sky object imaging. I'm going to do my best to make sure all the information I share with you is correct. But as a beginner, I'm sure I'm going to get some things wrong. And I do guarantee to you, though, if I do make a mistake, I'll be upfront and honest about it. I won't be embarrassed, and I'll share my mistakes with you in the event it can help you maybe avoid one. So, deep sky object imaging. I spent really 5-6 weeks in this chair, really going deep to understand what it was all about. The first thing I learned, well, not the first thing, but one thing that really stood out for me was it was very important for me to understand what I had to deal with as far as light pollution. I'm located in San Mateo, California. San Francisco is about 18 miles up the road. Oakland's across the bay, and San Jose is south of me by about 25 miles. And so what you see on the screen here is a map that you can access. It's at lightpollutionmap.info. And this is a representation of my area. And where the little stick pen is where I'm located on the San Francisco Peninsula. And there's some information here that indicates I'm in a Class 7 border. I'll do a separate video on light pollution, but when you're in a Class 7 border, I probably am in a Class 8 now. This is 2015 data. There's a lot of challenges. So I really had to make sure, because I wanted to image for my backyard, could it be done? And if it could be done, what pieces of gear would I need to be able to do it successfully? So again, we'll get into this in another video, but clearly if you're considering deep sky object imaging, you want to have a clear understanding of the light pollution that you're dealing with in your area. And this map here is great. You can put in different locations and it'll show you the radiance or the light pollution for that particular area. So what does deep sky object imaging involve? So at this early stage, as a beginner, this is kind of the current state of my knowledge. And as you see here, I've got a box on the left-hand side and one on the right-hand side, one called data acquisition, one called data processing. The important thing here is those boxes may not be equal. And said a different way is, I'm learning that the bulk of your time may be more on the data processing side than on the data acquisition side. I don't know that to be true yet, but I am going to find out. And then underneath the data acquisition side, I laid out some key things that I learned. And first and foremost, when it comes to acquiring data through your telescope, or whether that you're using a DSLR and a lens, or a mirrorless camera and a lens, or a dedicated astro camera, calibration is going to be very important. The results you get out of all your efforts are going to rely a large part on calibration. And in the area of calibration, I've gone through that process twice now using my DSLR Canon 6D and my Rokinon 85mm lens. Calibration involves capturing different types of frames: dark frames, flats, bias frames, dark flats, and I'll get into that more in another video. But if you're researching whether or not this area is a good fit for you, spend a lot of time trying to understand the calibration requirements and process. Some people have some issues with that, but it's foundational to getting good results when you get into the other side of the equation, the data processing side. Your calibration is going to be very important. And then what you see in blue is the equipment I've already just recently put together. The future videos will be based around those particular items, how they go together, how do you use them. You'll see in the top part is mostly in the data acquisition side is mostly hardware, and in the bottom part of the data acquisition side is different software that I'll be using as part of the data acquisition process. And I'll get into each of those applications more in other videos. I was really amazed on the variety of tools that are available to you out there in this area of deep sky object imaging. And to the point, maybe there's so many you could have a hard time making a decision which is the right one for you to use. I'll touch on analysis paralysis later. I made a decision to go with astrophotography tools and Stellarium and PhD2, which I'll use part of the guiding setup. And again, I'll go into more of that. But I decided on a telescope. I've decided on a guide scope. I have a portable power pack. I'm going to have both a laptop and a PC. Field flattener. Filters are very important to me because I am in a light polluted space. So filters are going to be a big part of me trying to mitigate light pollution. How successful I'll be remains to be seen. On the data processing side, so far I've only used Deep Sky Stacker and Photoshop, and I've also used a trial version of Astro Pixel Processor. I've only got about 6 days left on that trial version. I think I'm going to commit to that going forward. Many people use Pix Insight, a very powerful tool. I've watched some videos on the internet about it. In particular, I think Adam Bach maybe has some tutorials on certain aspects of Pix Insight. But it is like climbing Mount Everest to learn how to use it. Well, those are my words as a beginner. But many people use it and they feel that that provides the best results when it comes to data processing. So again, things in blue are what I'll be touching upon in my future videos as I get started and start sharing information about the actual process of how I'm going about acquiring the data and then how I'm going about the processing. What I like to do, I'm 66. I've been a beginner many times in my life. And what I've learned is it's important to establish the right expectations. And so I needed to set the right expectations for myself. And the way I went about that was definitely the research. I spent, like I said, 5-6 weeks in this chair, probably a little bit too long, too many hours in a day. But I wanted to move forward, and I thought it was very important to understand as much as I can about this area before I made a decision to commit any money. And what also was important was, to understand your behaviors and how you learn. At 66, I'm very familiar with my behaviors and how I learn. I can do quite well learning on my own, but clearly I need to participate in forums. I watch YouTube. I've ordered my first book in this area, which I'll share with you once I get it. But understanding that having some high-level knowledge of the data acquisition process, but in particular the data processing process, I had to decide if I wanted to invest that time in the data processing side of the equation. I'm already editing a lot of videos for another channel my wife and I have on YouTube. So, I can sit down and I can use tools and I can be successful teaching myself how to use them. So I made the decision that I was a good fit as far as my current behaviors and how I like to learn and what would be available for me to learn with. Again, light pollution, I'm going to say it probably several times, understanding what mitigations are available. And this is important because being in a heavily light polluted area, there's some things I'm going to have to do, like going into narrowband imaging, and that involves filters. These filters can be expensive, but I'll touch on that in future videos. Deciding where you'll be able to do your imaging. I surveyed my backyard. I have a video on that, how I approach surveying the backyard. I also have the ability, being retired, to go to remote dark sites, although there are current restrictions on travel in my area. So you really want to make sure, can you image from your backyard, or are you going to have to always go to a remote site? Chances are, if you're always having to go to a remote site, that might impact how often you actually image. So that's something I think you want to pay particular attention to. And then what I'm in the process of doing is creating a roadmap for my learning and expenditures. And I have set a budget, and I'll share that budget with you in another video. But a roadmap's important to me. I'm a very checklist-oriented person. I have set a roadmap of what I want to learn first, and then what I want to learn second, and then what I want to learn third, trying to build upon a good foundation and then adding new learnings into the process. And those will be some of the things I cover in some of the future videos. And then a few more things on establishing the right expectations for yourself. From what I can see, astrophotography can be a very deep space. It's probably deeper than space itself. But having been a beginner, faced with learning some very complex things, I know the way you start is you learn a little bit. I know what I don't. Well, the problem is I don't know what I don't know. I'm trying to fill those gaps in as you go along. And having been a beginner before, I know that when I don't know what I don't know, that sometimes causes mistakes, whether maybe it's the wrong expenditure or something. But, I know I'm going to make some mistakes along the way. I decided to fight analysis paralysis. Often that can prevent you from moving forward. I'll discuss in one of the videos how I went about selecting my first telescope. But, at the high level, I selected it knowing it wouldn't be my last telescope. So if I didn't select quite correctly the first time around, hopefully it would be sufficient for me to continue to build my knowledge base. And then down the road, I can upgrade to a different type of scope. I didn't want to be paralyzed by trying to do too much detailed analysis that I never get to make the decision on, am I moving forward and what am I going to move forward with. That's just kind of how I approach things. The other dynamic was, right now the supply chain is very constrained, so being able to get a telescope, your options were limited, so maybe that helped me make my decision. And again, in the beginning, I know as a beginner I'm going to create islands of knowledge. But I also know over time, those islands of knowledge will start to merge. They'll start to come together. And, this is the learning process for me. And I also know as I learn more, I'll gain additional confidence. But I also know the more I learn, oftentimes it seems like I've really not learned a lot because there's so much more. So sometimes you dig into a subject and, you find out, wow, there's really that much more. But the way I handle that is, what do I need to understand for now? And then later, I'll take care of later in that sense. So anyway, this is just kind of some of the way I approached it, and got to the decision that I'm going to move forward. Again, what you see here in blue are acquisitions I've already made, and I'll be starting to put those together over the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping I'm acquiring data within the next 2 weeks. I'll make some videos on how I put the telescope together and those type of things. I'll do a video about a guide scope and a guide camera. So those things will just naturally come. I'll share through videos the knowledge that I'm learning. So anyway, this was just kind of a quick overview to share how I got to the decision that I was going to move forward in deep sky object imaging. I'm up for the challenge. I'm already having fun. I mean, just what I'm learning is amazing. And I'll say one thing: being the owner of a DSLR and a mirrorless camera, I did photography for a lot of years. I was a portrait photographer. I did a lot of headshots for people and those type of things. I never really thought much about my sensor. I never thought much about dynamic range. What I have learned in the last 5-6 weeks about my camera, both cameras, their sensors, dynamic range, signal to noise, shot noise, has just been phenomenal. And again, that fuels the fun because you have this great opportunity to learn so much more. So for me, it's just been a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm getting a little long here. If you like this kind of content, please give it a thumbs up. I hope you will consider joining, subscribing. I'm hoping some more experienced astrophotographers subscribe, and that they can share their comments with me and help me get up the learning curve a little bit faster. What really drives a YouTube channel, through my experience with my other channel, is the comments and questions. The discussion that gets started in the comments can be very helpful. So anyway, this is my thought process, and maybe some of what I've shared here today could be insightful to you if you're considering getting into the astrophotography area with a focus on deep sky object imaging. I hope you come along on my journey. Let's have some fun together. If you're a beginner like me, let's learn together. And I think that's about it. Till next time, thank you.